The last class we were just introduced the 5 precepts what we are showing on the board. The 5 precepts which is observed by all the Buddhist groups. That means there are different groups are there, different types of Buddhism as it had been spreading to different lands. So this 5 precepts is a must for all the Buddhists. As we have seen, the 3 jewels, that is of Buddha and Dharma and Sangha, it is mandatory for all the Buddhist schools to have that. Along with that, they observe these 5 precepts. The first 2 precepts we have already seen, but only for a continuity we repeat that. That is, the first precept is not killing or causing harm to other living beings. This is the main precept. All the others are an explanation or an addition to these main precepts of ahimsa, not killing or causing harm to other living beings. This is the fundamental ethical principle of Buddhism, and all the other precepts are elaborations of this. The precept implies acting non-violently wherever possible, and many Buddhists are vegetarian for this reason. The positive counterpart of this precept is love. So why you do no harm to other beings, living beings? Because of the love for them. That is the altruistic nature of the Buddhism. The second precept observed by the Buddhists is not taking the not given. Not taking the not given means that you are not going to steal anything from others or take forcefully from others or violent means. So stealing is an obvious way in which you can do harm to others. One can also take advantage of people, exploit them or manipulate them. All these can be seen as ways of taking that which is not given. The positive counterpart of this precept is generosity. So what Buddhism will advocate is that love, generosity. Love in the first sense would be that of not causing any harm to other living beings. Second is not taking what is not given, no stealing, no forceful way of extracting from them or exploiting them or manipulating them. These are all against the principle. And what is the counterpart of this precept is generosity. Third precept is avoiding sexual misconduct. Over the centuries, the different Buddhist schools have discussed or interpreted this precept in many ways. But essentially it means not causing harm to oneself or to the other in the area of sexual activity. It includes avoiding breaking commitments in the area of sexual relations and encouraging others to do the same. That means to keep yourself true to the commitment. The positive counterpart of this precept is commitment. So we have 3 aspects here: love, generosity and commitment. So what Buddhism is looking for, more of that positive outreach to the other people. So avoiding sexual misconduct. And this area is very much insisted so that you don't overindulge and then cause harm to others, for yourself as well as others. The fourth precept is avoiding false speech. Speech is the crucial element in our relationship with others, and yet language is a slippery medium. We often deceive ourselves and others without even realizing that this is what we are doing. Truthfulness, the positive counterpart of this precept, is therefore essential in an ethical life. But truthfulness is not enough. And in another list of precepts, the 10 precepts of Kusala Dharmas, no fewer than 4 speech precepts are enshrined there. So avoiding false speech. The tendency in us is somehow to escape or just escape the punishment or to be always in the good book of others. We may resort to means of falsifying things. So sometimes it is without our knowledge or with the full knowledge and consent we do undertake that. So what is to be insisted here is the truthfulness in all things. So that is going to be the counterpart of this precept. So we have already 4 then. The first one, not killing or doing harm to others. The counterpart of this precept is love. Second one, not taking the not given. And the counterpart of this precept is generosity. Third precept, avoiding sexual misconduct, and the counterpart of this is the commitment. The fourth, avoiding false speech. The counterpart of this is the truthfulness. So we have love, generosity, commitment, and truthfulness. The fifth aspect of the precept is abstaining from drink and drugs that cloud the mind. The fifth precept tells to avoid any intoxicating drinks that could cloud the mind. The positive counterpart of this precept is mindfulness or awareness. Mindfulness is a fundamental quality to be developed, the Buddha's path, and experiences show that taking intoxicating drink or drugs tends to run directly counter to this. Mindfulness, awareness, awakeness. So this will be defeated by the fact that you take the strong drinks or those which cloud the mind, drinks or drugs that can cloud the mind. So in Buddhism we can see always that is of that awakeness or mindfulness is very important. You become aware of your surrounding, that mindful of that. So keep the mind very much alert and awake. You need to be free from all the intoxication of drinks and drugs. So we have the 5 precepts here, that is not killing or doing any harm, then not taking what is not given, avoiding sexual misconduct, avoiding false speech, abstaining from drinks and drugs that cloud the mind, so that you are very clear in your mind with regard to the something that you are considering. So not influenced by or clouded by any of the intoxicating drinks. Now what is the idea of Buddhist aspect of mind and body? So this Buddhism teaches that the mind and body cannot be understood independently of one another. This means that as well as cultivating the mind through the meditation, the physical dimension of being is also very important. So as well as teaching the meditation, many Triratna centers also teach classes in yoga, and some hold classes or retreats in Tai Chi, Aikido and Karate. Although these are not part of the core curriculum of centers, many people find huge benefits from practicing such physical training with experienced teachers. It is very well told that a sound mind in a sound body. So both go together. So training the body, the physique, is also equally given importance in Buddhism. So much even any martial arts, that is also a concentration of the mind is very much insisted, and therefore just like in the meditation, so too if you really want to develop your body, that concentration power and putting into a kind of the martial arts, it is required. Now we go on to the next major theme in Buddhism, the divisions in Buddhism. There are two major divisions in Buddhism. One is Hinayana and other is Mahayana. And they are known by different names. Hinayana is also called Theravada or the small vehicle. And Mahayana is known as the large vehicle. The main difference we can see between them is that Theravada Buddhism or the Hinayana Buddhism is very little rigid, or they are true to the precepts or that which is given, the laws, the regulations given by Buddha himself, and they don't want to deviate from that. So the interpretations are very, very strict interpretations in Theravada Buddhism or Hinayana Buddhism. Therefore, it is called the smaller vehicle, and not much flexibility is given in that, in the Hinayana Buddhism. Whereas the Mahayana, little more flexible, and as it goes to different lands, the culture, the tradition, so much of absorption is being done. Whereas in the Hinayana Buddhism, so much openness you will not find. So that becomes the major division or major point of division, plus the various names given to these two divisions. So that is Hinayana and Mahayana. Buddhism can be divided into two major schools, that is Theravada and Mahayana, or Hinayana and Mahayana. Theravada is the dominant form of Buddhist schools in Sri Lanka, Thailand, Cambodia, Burma, there's some Myanmar and Laos. That is the Theravada Buddhism or the Hinayana Buddhism, little strict order, or we can call the orthodox and other one heterodox. In the sense only from the point of view of the strictness or adherence to Buddha and his teaching. That is Theravada school or the Hinayana school is very strict with regard to the interpretation. Not any type of interpretation is possible. Whereas we find in the Mahayana little more liberal interpretation, they are little more flexible in their approach. Therefore, these major two divisions, that is Theravada or Hinayana, or that is of the lesser vehicle, smaller vehicle, that is the name that is given to Theravada school of Buddhism and Mahayana school of Buddhism, two major divisions. And Theravada is the dominant form of Buddhism found in Sri Lanka, Thailand, Cambodia, Burma, Myanmar and Laos. Mahayana is the dominant in China, Japan, Taiwan, Tibet, Nepal, Mongolia, Korea and most of Vietnam. So Mahayana has got a wider acceptability and taking than that of the Hinayana Buddhism. We may sometimes hear that there are three major schools of division in Buddhism, the third being Vajrayana. Vajrayana is associated with Tibetan Buddhism as well as the Japanese school called Shingon. But Vajrayana is founded on Mahayana philosophy and is more accurately understood as an extension of Mahayana. So sometimes you may hear that there are three divisions, that is Theravada, Mahayana and Vajrayana. But Vajrayana, actually it is an extension on Mahayana school of Buddhism. And therefore, further we can find elements of Vajrayana in many schools of Mahayana besides the Tibetan and Shingon. So there is a kind of mixer in number of them. But we can say that the major division, there are two. That is Hinayana or Theravada Buddhism and that of Mahayana Buddhism. The smaller vehicle, that is Hinayana, and larger vehicle is the Mahayana. If we come across the discussion of school of Buddhism called Theravada or Hinayana, most of the time they refers to Theravada. So Theravada Buddhism is little more very strict in the observation and more close to the principles of Buddhism as Buddha taught. They don't want to deviate from that. So as Gautama Buddha taught them, so they want to preserve that tradition, the thought of Buddha, without much diluting of the facts. The basic doctrinal difference that divides Theravada and Mahayana is interpretation of Anatha, the teaching that there is no soul or self. So the main division or main division is based on the interpretation of Anatha, or the theory of no soul, no self. The self that seems to inhabit our bodies continuously through our lives is an illusion. All schools of Buddhism support this teaching. So what Buddhism tells is that the self, the abiding self, which is continuous, according to Buddhism, it's a myth, it's an illusion. So all the schools of Buddhism teach or support this teaching. However, Mahayana Buddhism takes Anatha further and teaches a doctrine called Shunyata, or emptiness. According to Mahayana, all phenomena take identity to us only in relation to the other phenomena, and cannot be said or to either exist or not exist. The difference in interpretation of Anatha impacts how many other doctrines are understood. So the doctrine of Anatha, or the interpretation of no soul, it's not easy to grasp. So if we are not able to grasp, then we are not the first ones to do so. These are extremely difficult doctrines to be or to understand, and many will tell that they cannot be understood by intellect alone. If you are a beginner, there is not much point in spinning your wheels over which school is right. Practice a while and come to your own conscious or conclusions as you gain more understanding. So if you are a beginner in Buddhism, then the best thing is to practice these methods, or in the what is enshrined in the both the schools, and find for yourself which is suiting you. If you are new to Buddhism, the most obvious difference you might see is that in the Theravada, the ideal practice is the Arhat, the individual who has realized enlightenment. In Mahayana, the ideal practice is Bodhisattva, the enlightened being who is dedicated to bring all beings to enlightenment. So one major point of division is the interpretation of Anatha, no soul, no self. That is the interpretation. Depending on what interpretation, then we can see the difference between the Theravada school of Buddhism and Mahayana school of Buddhism. Another aspect of the division is based on the aspect of the arhathood, or the difference we might see, that is in Theravada, the ideal to be reached is Arhat. It is the individual who has realized enlightenment. Whereas in Mahayana, the ideal is the Bodhisattva ideal, the enlightened being who is dedicated to bring all beings to enlightenment. So that two aspects we can think of when we speak about the major divisions. So the major divisions is the Theravada school of Buddhism, that is said to be little more stricter in its interpretation of Buddha and his teachings, whereas Mahayana, which is little more liberal and lenient, they are called the bigger vehicle, which is accommodating many more things, or a little bit of liberal interpretation to the teachings of Buddha. And maybe we can say that as we can see, many lands are open to Mahayana school of Buddhism than that of Hinayana school of Buddhism because of its flexibility and adaptability. Now we go to the divisions of Theravada school of Buddhism, that is the stricter interpretation, or we can say the Hinayana, or we call that is the smaller vehicle. In Asia, there is a bigger difference between monastic and lay Theravada Buddhism. So in Asia, that Theravada school of Buddhism, there is strict difference between the monks and the laity. Then among the differences of different orders or sects of Theravada Buddhism, then the orders, the division or differences between the monks, the monastic and the laity. Monks meditate, study, teach, and lay people on the whole, there are some exceptions, do not. Lay people practice by supporting the monasteries with alms, donations, chants and prayers. They are encouraged to keep the 5 precepts and observe Ubosata Days. Ubosata in Sanskrit, Ubavasataha, is the Buddhist day of observance. That is Ubosata. In Buddhist day of observance, in existence from Buddha's time, that is 500 BCE, and still being kept today in Buddhist countries. The Buddha taught that Ubosata Days is for the cleansing of the defiled mind, resulting in inner calm. So Ubosata Days are meant for keeping or cleansing the defiled mind, resulting in inner calm. So one thing which is being insisted in Buddhism is of the purity of the mind, purity of the intention, and this very often there are days kept, maybe in a week, in a month, like that, separate days for cleansing the defiled mind. Mind is to be kept pure, that is through meditation and cleansing of all the defilements. That is the Ubosata Days. So that is in the Theravada Buddhism we have that. That is the division between, when we see in Asia, we will see that they are two, that is the monks and the laity. Very clear distinction between them. Monks meditate, study, teach, whereas lay people, they do not. They, on the other hand, support the monasteries with alms, donations, chants and prayers. And they are asked to keep the 5 precepts which we have already here. That is the 5 precepts in all the division or the schools of Buddhism, they keep these 5 precepts. And there are difference in the interpretation depending on the type. That means we have said about the 2, Anatha, that is no soul, and then the ideal to be reached. In the Hinayana, it is Arhathood, whereas in Mahayana, it is the Bodhisattva ideal. So that means you have reached that already, the Arhathood, but still you want to help other people to come to, that is the enlightenment. So they are the Bodhisattvas. They could just, it's a question of just getting or giving up oneself or just enjoying that nirvana, but they are abstaining or refraining from that, but employing themselves or engaging themselves to help other beings to have the enlightenment. That is the Bodhisattva ideal in Mahayana. Whereas what we have in other, that is in the Hinayana Buddhism, that is of the Arhathood, that is the individual who has realized the enlightenment. So we have this division here. There is a division of Theravada school or the Hinayana school, division between the monks and the laity. In the West, those who come to Theravada as adults are opposed to growing up with an ethnic Asian community, most commonly practice Vipassana or insight meditation and study Pali Canon, which is the main body of the scripture of Theravada. The more traditional monastic lay symbiosis found in Asia hasn't yet emerged among the non-ethnic Asian Western practitioners. There are a number of different Theravada school of Theravada monastic orders in Asia. There are also beliefs there and practices associated with Buddhism, often taken from the local folk culture, and are found in some parts of Southeast Asia, but not others. But compared to Mahayana, Theravada is relatively homogeneous. So one aspect you can find in that of Theravada school is that compared to Mahayana, Theravada school is more homogeneous. That means everywhere you will find this division.